It's been exactly 1 year since I changed my display by selling my 5 IKEA Detolfs and replacing them with 7 IKEA Blalidens. So this is my review on the IKEA Blaliden after 1 year of owning them. Was it worth it or not? Let's find out. Hi everyone and welcome to One Six Figure Focus, and in this video, as I said in the intro, we're going to be taking a look at the IKEA Blaliden. So think of this like an IKEA Blaliden review after owning them for 1 year. It's like a review after 1 year. And I do have a special guest here. He's particularly anxious today. Sometimes the lad, he just wants to sit up on the lap. And that's it. I don't know what's wrong with him today. He just, King Charles, they're mad for affection, but we don't mind. Right, you just sit there, buddy. I had to move the mic because he kept licking the end of it and it's covered in his nose snot or whatever the hell. Good boy, he doesn't mind. Okay, so look, for a year ago I made the decision to sell my 5 IKEA Detolfs and replace them with 7 IKEA Blalidens. Now, as you know, if you're a collector in your 1/6 scale game, a lot of people would start off with Billies or IKEA Detolfs, but of course the Detolf, it had its limitations. At the moment, the biggest limitation is that the fact that they're sold out, they've been discontinued by IKEA, and they gradually started climbing in price. So even if you can get them now, they're quite expensive. And then IKEA announced this brand new product called the IKEA Blaliden. These names are terrible. Oh yeah, I'm making a campaign. They should just change to IKEA Focus. No commission required. So the reason why I think a lot of 6 scale collectors have them is because like you can get that kind of classic museum look and have 1 or 2 figures per shelf, and they're kind of like the right height for your standard 6 scale figures. Now, the reason a lot of people don't like the IKEA Blalidens is because they are smaller. While they're available and you can get them and they're cheaper than what the Detolfs is, they are actually smaller. So if you want to like cram a bunch of figures into one cube, it's more than likely not going to work very well. So these are my thoughts after 1 year. I have jotted down some pros and cons. I'm going to try and keep it as honest as I can possibly do and as detailed as I possibly do. But ironically, some of the drawbacks that I've noticed are actually the reason why I actually went in and made this decision to change anyway. So I think the best photo to describe this is this one here. So if you've been following my channel, or even if you haven't, what I used to have a TV stand. And on top of the TV stand, well, actually, it wasn't a TV stand. It was it was kind of like what were they called? They were the Calyx, the IKEA Calyx. They were the 2-hole versions. I had 6 of them lined up, and I had like the IKEA Jenna boxes, like cardboard boxes designed for these the holes of the Calyx cubes. So you can imagine like there were 6 holes, and then there was 6 kind of like plastic, or not plastic, kind of paper IKEA. They're called Jenna boxes. They're TJENA, and the reason I had them is for storage basically, but the main reason I wanted the Calyx is to act as a riser, because I don't think it's good if you have like your Detolfs on the ground. I personally don't like the look of having the Detolfs on the ground or the Blalidens on the ground. I want to give a bit of a space to rise up. Now, so on these, the reason I made the decision, so I had the 5 IKEA Detolfs and I had them on these IKEA Calyx, which acted as a riser. But then about a year ago, I replaced the 5 IKEA Detolfs. I sold them, to be honest, quickest sale ever, put them up, and they weren't even up 24 hours, and some guy had offered the asking price from came, collected them. I had them deconstructed for them. That was a pain in the arse, but I had them deconstructed and disassembled, like very organized actually for him, and it would make it easy for him to collect them, because it was a pretty small area he came to collect them in. But I got rid of them and I purchased 7 IKEA Blalidens. The reason was because this wall space behind me, I had noticed like when I first moved in, I measured the wall and I measured the dimensions I had, and I'd fit 5 Detolfs, but I wouldn't have fit 6. There was just barely enough space like I wouldn't have got the 6th one in by, it was literally like, I'd say it was only like an inch of space I needed to get the last Detolf in, but it wouldn't have worked. Fine. When these came along then, I actually saw Ryan from Jetta Patrol, so shout out to Ryan. Always like his videos and his production, his posing, and the way he displays things. And I think he got, it was either 4 or 5 of these, and he put like 1 Iron Man in each one. And I love the 1 figure per shelf look. That's just what I like. I like just every single cube, it's just giving attention to that 1 figure. You're giving them enough space to breathe there, and you can just pose it up whatever way you want, within reason. And I just really like that look. I particularly, I don't like overly crammed displays, and to be honest, like I'm not the collector who's hundreds and hundreds of these things anyway. This fella's getting a bit restless. I want to go down. He just wants to turn. Okay, grand. You're alright. Okay, so, sorry. So I like the 1 figure per shelf look. And the main reason I opted to get these is because they're slightly narrower than the Detolf. I would be able to get rid of the 5 Detolfs and not replace them with 6 Blalidens, but actually 7, because they're just that bit more narrower. Apologies for quick interruption to this video. If you're watching this video right now, hit the like button, and more importantly, hit the subscribe button. It really helps me grow the channel, and the support is greatly appreciated. Back to the video. So that means that all of the 5 like that I had up there, if I replace the 5 Blalidens or Detolfs with the 5 Blalidens, each of them ones are narrower, giving me extra space, and I managed to fit 7. So that was the main reason. I could fit 7 of these, whereas I could only fit 5 Detolfs. And if I'm doing 1 figure per shelf and there's a lot of space around that figure, maybe a bit too much space, and I found like I was kind of wasting space almost. So I made the decision, did that, and I originally had them on a TV stand. It was a TV stand, I think it was about 2.5 meters long or something like that. I think, no, maybe it was 2. I think it was 260. Yeah, I think from a site called Vita XL or something like that. And it was nice. Just a black TV stand. It was about maybe 40 or 50 centimeters high. It was the right length for this wall. It was actually perfect for it, really, and it was perfect to fit 7 of these. And it had like an LED underglow, which is pretty cool as well. But obviously then I was like, okay, I want to get that Jazz Inc. 89, and I would like the option to display vehicles. So I got onto Moducase and explained what my vision was, that I needed some sort of a big cabinet that was capable of displaying these big 6-scale vehicles like the Jazz Inc. 89 or the Tumbler here from the HotToys Tumbler from the Dark Knight trilogy. Because I've always liked the Jazz Inc. I've always liked the 89 anyway, because, you know, that movie is just yeah, look, it was a movie that made me fall in love with movies. And of course I'm a big Dark Knight trilogy fan, but I've always liked the idea of displaying vehicles. And even if I get like 3 vehicles or 4, I could always rotate and swap out, and that changes up the display. And I actually like doing that because, you know, it keeps it fresh. Like if you have a figure and you repose the figure, it's almost like having a brand new figure as well, because like if you just put them up there and you never change them at all, sometimes I get a bit bored. And then I think it's a good way to take the figure down, re-engage with it, swap out some of the accessories, change the pose, and then you get more value, I think, out of what you have. I'm hoping this is coming through, because I'm a bit further away from the mic than usual, because he'll eat it otherwise. So yeah, that was the main reason. I could fit 7 of these, and I could only fit 5 Detolfs. I got rid of the TV stand, replaced them with these custom Moducases, which acts now as not only vehicle display but a riser as well. And if you look at the space at the bottom of the Blalidens here, say like just above the tumbler, there's a black strip that's actually magnetic. I can take that off, and that's where all the cable storage is, and I'll mention that later on in the video. So okay, I suppose the first pro and con, you know, I might go through the pros and cons at the end. To give you a proper list of all the pros and cons, because I have them just there on my phone, but I'll continue on some of the photos. So look, it solved the problem for me. I could now continue to do 1 figure per shelf, but because they're narrower, fit in extra Blalidens, and also I didn't feel like I was wasting as much space. I think there's enough clearance. Like if you look at the center there, for example, like the Captain America or that Mark 6 Iron Man, it's there's enough clearance on the top and enough clearance around it, and just enough space to breathe. Now just zooming in, if you look at another thing about him is, I like to wire up my figures, but I don't like clutter. Now if you look at this guy, obviously this Mark 6 is not posed on his base, he's posed on a Terminator base. It's actually the T-800 from the first Terminator movie, that base. But you can only really see that if you're up close. So what these are good for is, yeah, it's hard to hide the wire over the glass. Completely accept that. And that's one of the drawbacks of them. Whereas if you had like this on maybe a Moducase, if the black velvet bottom, it'd make it a lot easier to camouflage the black wires from CCFLs or Neo LEDs, or in this case fusion reactors, or even like your LED powered light up bases, you know, USB powered light up bases. All those cables tend to be black, and the ground floor or the bottom of those Moducases, they tend to be black as well, so it's easier to camouflage them. What I do like about these over the Detolfs is that once that cable gets to the corner, it disappears, because I run the cable down either the back left frame, as you can see here, just look at directly behind Iron Man, the back left corner, or sometimes the back right corner. And once the wire gets to one of those corners, because the wire is black and the frame of the Blalidens are black, the wire essentially effectively looks like it disappears. Still there, obviously, but it's easier to hide. And then a bit of black tape, and they're hidden. So if we like move down directly, you can see the tiny bit of wire. The reason I use the base there as well is because it elevates the figure a bit, and then the wire falls down behind him, and I can't see that little tiny like inch or two of a few inches of a wire that seems to be coming out of his right foot, because it is. Because obviously the fusion reactors, it's a USB on one end, then a wire, and then the wire splits up into like, depending how many dummy batteries you need. For example, this has one dummy battery going to his head, so the wire would split up, one dummy into a few different wires. One would go into his head, one goes into the back of his chest, and I think one goes into each arm as well, because you see the repulsors lighting up on the right hand. You can't see it on the left because he has a fist, okay, just the way I posed. So I can't really see that wire because of the base and because of the angle it's in. So when I turn around, I can't see that wire, which is great, and that's what I want. Now, unfortunately, you can kind of see here, like if you were closer looking directly in, you can see the wire of the Iron Man, because this is above here. This is above. You can see Ahsoka below. Now, if we drop down to Ahsoka, you can see that wire there. But again, I'm not going to see. If I turn around here, I can see a bit of it, but typically I don't see that often because of the standard, the height that I'm looking at it in. But it is a drawback because it's glass. But you can see as soon as it gets to the corner, the wire effectively disappears because it blends in with the black frame. Use a little bit of black insulation tape and have it taut all the way down, and it looks pretty good. Because I don't like when, say, if someone has Detolfs or Blalidens or some glass cases and there's wires going up and wires going down. Just for me personally, like if you do that, no disrespect or anything, for me, it just annoys me and I don't like that. Even like the bit of wire here, I'm trying to constantly think of like more effective ways of getting rid of them. I kind of toyed with the idea of having like a base that would go down on the ground completely and then covering it might work. Now underneath her, then direct underneath Ahsoka, we have Vader. So you can see at the look at say, I don't know if you can see the cursor here, but if you look at this, I'm looking at the right side of this cabinet, you can see the wire coming out and then disappearing down the hole. So what I had to do for each of the 7 Blalidens, I had to get a thing called a hole saw. It's a device you attach to a drill, and it's specific for metal because the base of these are metal, and drill into the bottom of these, because I wanted a hole about maybe that big, maybe about 1.5 inches in diameter, enough to comfortably fit USBs, because I knew I was going to effectively use USB powered stuff, whether it was bases, fusion reactors, neo LED sabers. So you can see there that the wire comes down, and because it's black, I can still see it here, but from like a meter away, which is where I'm usually going to be viewing the figures from, I can't see it. Okay, so that's that. The next part then, so the Vader, this is one thing, one of the drawbacks then. So the Vaders are quite tall because although the Blalidens comfortably fit a standard 6 scale figure, for taller figures that are, in real life over 6 foot or whatever, so they're going to be a few centimeters taller, it just means that you don't have much clearance. So if they come on a really fancy base, like this is the Return of the Jedi 40th and it's the deluxe version, so it came with that really cool stairs base, which I have repurposed for something else. You'll see it in my collection tour. There's going to be one in the next few weeks. And I came with another light up base, which I've repurposed to fit Boba Fett, because Boba Fett isn't as tall as Vader, and he can comfortably stand on that light up base, and I can take advantage of the light up base, and his head isn't hitting the top. So I could use a base with him, but not the stair base, and I don't think the light up base, it's actually quite tall, his head would be touching the top. So that's a drawback of them, vertical space. So this is where like the modular cases would have an edge over, say, the likes of Detolf or Blaliden. Now, I just wanted to show you this from the side. This is another drawback. If you look, it probably stands out to you. I really like the black frames. And you see, it's ironic. Like, I'm going to go through, just before we finish this video, and this is, by the way, the last video. This is video number 12 in the 12 Days of Christmas 2024 playlist. I know it's 2025, but like, it's the last video in the 12 Days of Christmas playlist that I do every year. This is one of the... While I will go through the pros and cons on a list before I finish this video, a lot of the cons are things that I like. The main con really is the size of them. They're not as tall, and they're kind of shorter as well. They're not as wide, but that's a benefit to me because I'm going to do 1 figure per shelf, so therefore I can fit in an extra 2 shelves. That's an extra 8 figures. So if you look at this here, it's fairly obvious because you've got the 2 frames of the Blalidens colliding, and one of the frames that say the frame of the cube that Vader's in, you can see that it essentially blocks off part of the figure if you're looking at it from this angle. Now look, it doesn't make a difference. If you want to look at it, you're just going to move slightly to the right. So it's first world problem. But the IKEA glass was, the detailing were pretty much all glass, bar the thin metal grey frame. So in fairness, that's a win for the detailing. Doesn't bother me. Like I can notice it. It's definitely like, yeah, the corners, there's less visibility there. It's like driving your car and you have that bit where the windscreen attached to the side window or passenger window or the driver's window. There's that little blind spot there. It's kind of like that. You getting restless? You happy enough to stay here? Okay, he's happy enough to stay here. Okay, so that's the end of the slideshow. What we're going to do is I'm just going to read out. Do you want to read this? No, I don't think so. Right, so I'm going to go through the pros and cons before I finish up this video. Right, so the Blalidens, the pros. Now this one's probably tailored to me. The smaller cubes suit my display purposes better. As I've stated in the video, I like to display one figure per shelf. If I continue to do it with the Blalidens, that'd be, or sorry, if I continue to do it with the pre-existing detailing setup, that's 5 detailing. That's a maximum of, you know, you're going to get 4 figures per detailing. That's 20 figures. But because they're narrow and I'm doing 1 figure per shelf anyway, I could capitalize on the space which I felt I was wasting. I could fit in an extra 2 Blalidens, so that brings my total displays, if assuming I'm doing 1 figure per shelf, which I tend to do, from 20 to 28. So, and it's just, I'm just taking advantage of the width of the room more. But however, that's also one of the cons, because I think a lot of people won't like that. So the next thing then, the black frames suit my theme better. Now a lot of people don't like that. It really doesn't bother me. I actually like the look of it. I think it actually helps to frame the individual figures better, and also goes to the theme of the other furniture I have in this room. For example, I don't think the 5 detailing, considered they were the white ones on the bottom, would look very well on top of the module cases that I have. Whereas these ones, like, they're very similar to the design of the module cases. They have that black frame as well. And next thing is, down to the black frames again, they also help me hide the wires, which is fantastic. Another advantage is the price. They're cheaper than the detailing, and one of their biggest advantages is that they are available. That's one of their biggest advantages over the detailing. They're available, whereas the detailing aren't. Now the disadvantages, and again, some of the disadvantages are things that suit my collection. So, but the biggest disadvantage probably would be the size. They are smaller. So if you intend on having like a scene and multiple figures inside the Blalidens, it's not going to work. I think any more than 2, it's going to look crowded. The next thing then, the build quality. They aren't as solid as the detailing, and the detailing are kind of rickety. I kind of think they're more or less around the same, but the detailing seemed heavier. These are definitely lighter. I don't have any issue. Now this fella needs to get down. 1 second. Right. Okay. Right. See you. Enjoy your day. I want to get back up in 2 seconds time. Alright, so the build quality, they're definitely lighter than the detailing. I don't think the detailing are particularly sturdy. They do rattle. These ones you have to be careful opening and closing, especially when I tend to not use stands or crotch grabbers. And even if I am using stands, I tend not to use the crotch grabbers. So like if I look around, I think the only figure that I'm actually using a crotch grabber for, yeah, it's the cap, the endgame cap. There, that's because that particular pose, kind of like a walking pose, and it wasn't really working without it. I could have got it done, but I just think, again, it's when you pull these out, it's a magnetic door, you open it up, it's going to rattle a bit, so your poses have to be pretty solid, especially if you're not using stands or crotch grabbers. So yeah, they can be a bit rickety. Vertical space display, another drawback is that you don't have that vertical space display. You can actually change the heights. There are like pre-drilled holes, and each of these like trays, these, I suppose, the glass floors, the levels, they can be moved up or down, but they're in pre-existing drilled holes. You could drill your own, but I wasn't willing to do that. The only thing is, I'm using the lighting system here is by Luke Lights, and they're custom made for the Blalidens, the same way you can get them custom made for the detailing and the Millsbow as well. And while I could move up a level, I don't think it's going to be pleasing to the eye then, because then you have one level which is off and the rest of them be all the same. Pardon. The rest of them be all the same size, and then you have one that's just too big. And because the wires are pre-cut and they're customized for the wires for the Luke lights are customized for these. That's not going to work either then, because one of the wires would have to be longer, if that makes sense. Which brings me to the next point. The lighting here, no lighting comes with them, so you've got to sort out your own, whether you're going Luke lights or C. Frank, or just getting LED strips from IKEA or wherever and just doing your own. And the last thing then is that the black frame can interrupt visibility. So just to recap there, the pros: smaller cube suits my display purposes better. Narrower cube allows me to fit 7 where I had 5 details. The black frames help me hide the wires. The black frame also works with the theme and helps me frame my figures better. They're a lot cheaper. Well, they're not a lot cheaper. They are cheaper than the details, and that they're available. On the negative side of things, biggest complaint I think I hear people will say is they don't like the fact that they're smaller and you've less vertical display space. The build quality seems to be, it's not as solid as the Detolf. Vertical display space, you just, it's fixed. You can move them up or down, but then you need like lights that you can actually, as you move one up and down, you can adjust the lights as well. Whereas, you know, the wires for the Luke lights are pre-cut. They don't come with their own lighting. You need to, like I said, go get custom lighting or light them up yourselves with LED. And then finally the glass, the frame, the black frames can interrupt the visibility. So yeah, look, I look, after 1 year, if I just go back to this, like, there's all the pros and cons. I tried to be as kind of thorough as I could be. How could I not be happy with this? So a year in, it works for me. It mightn't work for all collectors, but like visually, again, I'm biased, but this looks pretty damn good. Just in terms of like the figure selection I have, the posing and accessoring I'm using, the fact that everything on the bottom row is lit up there, apart from R2 and C3PO. Even some of the higher up ones, you've got the Ahsoka there with the CCFL. Luke, you can't see the CCFL unfortunately on the right there. You got a few fusions lit up, and you know, from a distance, a meter away, you're not seeing any wires, even if it's just that little bit that goes from the figure to the back corner of the frame. So yeah, look, all in all, I like them. I recommend them, but please take in the pros and cons, especially the drawbacks and the negatives, before you consider buying. Make your own decisions and all that. So look, yeah, thanks for watching the 12 Days of Christmas playlist. If you haven't checked out the other videos, they're up online now in the 12 Days of Christmas 2024 playlist. That's the end of the video. If you want to support the channel, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Consider becoming a channel member. You can also follow me on Instagram and on X. That's it. That's the end of the video. See you in the next one. Good luck.